Hello there. I hope everyone is having a good day. I hope all is well. So we have episode 3 of the Bad Batch just dropped today, and it's it's a dark one. We always knew Clone Wars was a kids show. Yes, it's animated and it's made for kids, but there are some very uh, serious and dark moments throughout the show, and this is no different. I know that I'm a little late trying to get these reactions up. I did not do one for the first two episodes. Um, I I had a lot to say about this, but I think Star Wars Theory, who I think is probably the best Star Wars YouTuber, had perfect breakdowns, and he had a perfect breakdown of this one. Uh, and all of those breakdowns had pretty much the exact same thing I'd say. Uh, on this one, though, his breakdown kind of made me think of a few more things and a few things that weren't added, and just something I guess I could kind of a thought to ponder on for the future of the Bad Batch. First off, spoilers. Don't watch this video if you haven't seen the episode or plan to see it. I know that a lot of people don't have Disney Plus. I don't want to spoil the show for you if you ever plan on getting Disney Plus or are gonna watch it with a friend. So just don't watch this video. It's spoilers. So let's just start with the beginning of the episode. The Bad Batch is traveling through hyperspace. Their ship is crap, so it gets knocked out of hyperspace. Wrecker hits his head, um, and after they crash, we see Wrecker kind of rubbing his head in the same spot where the inhibitor chip would be. Uh, a lot of us think that it might have like kind of activated something in Wrecker's inhibitor chip. I I'm skeptical. Um, well, we all know that the Bad Batch has the inhibitor chips, like all of the clones, but theirs are defective. Their inhibitor chips don't work, save for Crosshair. We know this because Crosshair was the only one who executed Order 66, or at least tried to execute Order 66, and is continuing to execute orders that he is given by Tarkin. He says a line by many of the clones that have said, "Good soldiers follow orders, good soldiers follow orders." And so we know that Crosshair is being controlled. We know he's not necessarily evil. It's not his fault. And Omega says as much. Um, but with Wrecker's inhibitor chip, him getting hit in the head, I think it might have like activated his chip for a short bit, but I honestly don't think it's going to amount to much because we see him still care for Omega. He gives Omega a room of her own on the ship at the end of the episode. He's caring for Omega. And so if his chip was going through and through, I don't think he would have done that. I mean, it might be kind of like a very subtle increase, or we might see it in the future, the inhibitor chip work, but I honestly don't think it's going to amount to much. And alongside that, at the beginning of the episode, Tech was working on a scanner to find the inhibitor chips. And I think once they do that, they're going to take them out. We know that Rex is going to be in a future episode of the Bad Batch, and we know Rex took his inhibitor chip out. And I think with his knowledge of the inhibitor chip, uh, I think that he will help the Bad Batch remove their inhibitor chips. We know in Rebels that Rex finds Gregor and Wolf, who also removed their inhibitor chips, whether it's pre-Order 66 or post-Order 66. We don't really know yet. Uh, we don't even know if we'll see those clones in this show. That is something that has remained to be seen. So that was the beginning of the episode. They crash on a moon. Wrecker hits his head, and then Omega and Hunter go out to try and find a power core of some sort. I don't remember the exact power conductor that creature of the moon stole from their ship. We then transition back to Camino, where Tarkin and then a new character, Rampart, who's captain or lieutenant or somebody, who is in charge of Operation War Mantle. This is the process of the transitioning of the Imperial Army from clones to humans. We see them talk about having clones being in commander of human squads, training them. We see the Lama Su, who is the Kaminoan Prime Minister, raised his concerns that clones have always been superior to humans, and that if the Empire switches to humans, their strength could dwindle because no human will ever be as battle hardened as a clone, since clones are trained for combat from birth. Um, so we see Tarkin give the order for Crosshair to take a squad of elite soldiers from around the galaxy to go out on a mission and find Saw Gerrera's camp and wipe them out. And we see this is where it gets pretty dark. So they wipe out the fighters, and there's still refugees, civilians in the camp. Crosshair orders for them to be killed. One of the human recruits does not obey this order, and Crosshair kills him. And he orders the remaining human recruits to finish the mission, and they do. So yeah, that was on Disney. It's dark. Okay. Wow. But this is what I love about I don't love that it's dark, and I don't love them killing civilians, but Clone Wars has never been shy of getting serious, of going dark, because they talk about slavery. We see enslaved Togruta, Togrutans in season 4, I think. Season 3 or 4 of Clone Wars, we see enslaved people, we see torture all throughout, we see God knows how many violations of what we would consider war crimes. We don't know what the Star Wars universe is like in war crimes, but there's quite a few committed by both sides in the Clone Wars, and we know that the Empire won't give a crap about war crimes. Omega, shown awesome in this episode. I love Omega. She is one of the most pure Star Wars characters we've ever had, and she's just awesome. There are a lot of theories going around over what kind of clone she is. We know she's a clone. Of who? We have no idea. A lot of people are going around Palpatine. I really don't want that. I think that's just kind of my own opinion. I think we had enough of Palpatine with the sequel trilogy, and them just kind of really just using that story arc I wasn't a fan of. But to be fair to a lot of these theories, Omega does look, she has similarities to Palpatine. Her hairstyle, for one, is very similar. So we have Palpatine's hairstyle kind of like go back like that. I had a picture pulled up here. So let's start with Omega. That's Omega's hairstyle. You can kind of see it here. Let me focus the camera. It's kind of a little spiked back like that. And then with Palpatine, we don't actually have a real canon version of a younger Palpatine, but his hair, you can see, is very similar. And so that could be, it could be a Palpatine clone. But again, I'd prefer not. But it's kind of looking like that. She could be a female clone of Jango, which would also be cool. Or she could be a clone of someone we haven't seen. A lot of people think she's force sensitive. And I'm going to talk about something we see in this episode very specifically. I think she's one of the enhanced clones. I think her enhancement, her trait, is copycatting, I guess is the right term for it. She's able to pick up things very quickly. She's able to learn very quickly. Because in the first episode, we see her be very accurate with a rifle after never having fired a rifle before. She's able to shoot Crosshair's weapon out of his hand with perfect accuracy, like on her first try. We see her kind of picking up some of the mannerisms of Hunter, like she was copying his kind of ponder face. My camera's kind of all too dumb, but he was kind of in a pondering face. Omega was copying that exactly. In this episode, she's wanting to learn more about Hunter's tracking abilities. And while they're tracking the dragon that took their power conductor, Hunter's temporarily disoriented and out of the fight. And so Omega continues on the tracking by using the same skills that Hunter used. So I think she's able to pick up very quickly on some of the other enhancements or is able to learn these traits on her own very quickly. This is a force sensitive trait. Jedi are able to pick up or are able to learn things very quickly, and it's a force trait that Cal Kestis had in Fallen Order. He's able to pick up memories from touching things and is able to replicate those memories. We saw him play a song on a guitar-like object. I don't remember the name of it, but he's able to play a song on a guitar-like object in the game that Seer wrote herself. So there's no way Cal would have ever heard it, but he touched the object, picked up the memory, and played it. I think this is sort of what Omega has. I really don't know if she's force sensitive. I think that'd be very cool because, and I know Star Wars Theory talked about this at length, and I would love to see it. Starkiller, one of the best current legends, one of the best characters in Star Wars, is Galen Merrick. If you haven't played Force Unleashed, I'd strongly consider playing it or at least watching somebody play it on YouTube because the game is phenomenal and the character is amazing. The first game, he is just Galen Merrick, but the second game, he is a clone because he is killed in the first game, but after thousands, probably many thousands of tries, Vader is able to successfully clone Galen Merrick, clone a Jedi, which was thought to be impossible. Omega could be one of these attempts at cloning a Jedi. I don't think it's a setup for Starkiller. Again, I think that'd be cool. But another thought or another theory I have on Omega is that she's lucky. I don't really know how that could be an enhancement because luck isn't like it's not a physical or mental trait. So it's like Hunter's ability to track, his senses are allowing superior tracking ability. He's able to smell, touch. He's able to pick up those things because of his senses. Tech, his brain was altered for him to have this massive intelligence. And Wrecker's muscles and stamina has been enhanced for him to have those superior traits. And then Crosshair's vision and intellect has allowed him to have superior marksmanship. So all these are physical and mental traits combined. Luck isn't really either of those. And so that's another thing I think that people are thinking of why she's force sensitive, because luck, the force favors the force can favor Jedi. That's a theory that a lot of people have of why Stormtroopers' aim is so bad, because the Force is strong with Luke and Leia, and so the blaster bolts that we see in the Death Star corridor and the A New Hope, they're all missing because the Force is slightly altering their path so that they miss. That's a pretty wild theory. It's just Stormtroopers are bad. So there's a lot of theories going around Omega, and I like all of them so far. Palpatine, I like the Palpatine idea. I really do. It's just that's not one I particularly would like to see. I think the theory is very solid, and it's pretty cool. I think we've had enough of Palpatine. That's just my own opinion. I'm not trying to force my opinion onto anybody here. So moving on, I want to talk a little bit about Crosshair. I think he will be able to beat his inhibitor chip. I really hope he does, because at the end of the episode we see him ponder around what was the Bad Batch's barracks. We see on the wall the markings of how many complete missions they've had. We see the beds of his brothers, and he just goes to sit down on his own bed and he just kind of stares. I don't know if it's regret over his orders that he executed. I doubt that, because the inhibitor chip removes that regret from the brain, but knowing that all of the Bad Batch had some immunity to the inhibitor chip in the first place, I think Crosshair could potentially beat it. With him commanding these human recruits, I think this could be the start of Inferno Squad. That could be pretty cool. Inferno Squad was the squad from the Battlefront 2 game. The new Battlefront, well, that's not that new anymore, but the EA version of Battlefront 2, which was good enough. That story was pretty cool. We don't see Iden Versio. I don't even think Iden's born at this time, because this is like right after Order 66, and that took place during the Battle of Endor. And so I don't think she's even born yet. But I think Crosshair could potentially beat the inhibitor chip. Let's move on. Okay. Oh yes, the Kaminoans. So near the end of the episode, the Kaminoans are talking about moving on to the next phase. From the Clone Wars, Phase 2 is where we were at in terms of the cloning process. Phase 2 was like the order of millions of more clones and new clone armor, more training, things like that. Phase 3, we don't really know if it's Phase 3. They just say the next phase. They talk about how the Jango Fett DNA is degrading, and that future clones won't uphold to the same, the same power that current clones, like the Bad Batch, like Rex and Cody, Gregor, Echo, are at. They won't be up to that same, standard. And so they are talking about that they want a new strand, and they're talking about the Bad Batch, that the clones that would be most viable for a new strand won't come back. I think this is referencing to the Bad Batch and Omega. It could also be the next phase is talking about cloning Jedi, which I think is another kind of solid setup, in my opinion. Not a solid setup to something to do with Starkiller. We can hope. That'd be very cool. Or it could be an entirely new clone we haven't heard of in the end. I think it'll definitely be Jedi related, because in The Mandalorian we have Dr. Pershing, who has a Kaminoan cloning badge on his lab coat. He is very involved with Grogu, and was very involved, well, strongly hinted at that he was highly involved with the Palpatine clone from Rise of Skywalker. There's nothing confirmed on that yet, but it's very strongly hinted at. So it's like I think it's more likely than not we'll see the start of Jedi cloning or a Force sensitive cloning of some sort. Would very much like to see though Starkiller, because that's an awesome character. I think that's just about all I had for this. Bad Batch has been really great so far. I think Rex is probably going to be in the next episode or the 5th episode, because we know from the previous episode that the Bad Batch missed Rex by just a day. And so I think that they got where Rex was going from Cut Lawquane before he and his family disappeared. And I think it's very likely that we will see Rex in one of the next couple episodes. I know there's talk about Ahsoka coming back. Yeah, I'd love to see that. I have her lightsabers, for Christ's sake. She's my favorite Star Wars character, and so I'd love to see that. I just don't think we will. I could be wrong, because I was wrong about Luke Skywalker showing up in the Mandalorian finale. I just thought they won't do that. That's too much fan service. There's no way. And lo and behold, we see Luke Skywalker just battling his way through Death Troopers. So it's possible. The character I'd like to see the most in all of this, and I mentioned this in my before premiere, kind of what I want to see. I would really want to see Cody. I think, knowing that we're going to see Rex, I think Cody's just too much of an important brother to Rex for him not to care what happened to him. I think Rex has got to find out what happened to Cody, whether or not he executed Order 66, whether or not he was killed by Kenobi. We don't know. We know at some point Rex meets with Bail Organa, because in Rebels he mentions that Senator Organa confirmed Kenobi's death, but that was Organa playing along to hide the identity of Luke Skywalker and Leia. And so I don't know. I would very much like to see it because there's really not a lot of Cody lore after Order 66. Most of it's Legends. The biggest Legends piece I have, or that I like to hold on to, is from Force Unleashed, where he talks about his disdain for human recruits and that he would sacrifice I think it was a whole squad or a whole battalion of human recruits for just one Jango Fett clone. This is kind of another thing I forgot to mention this. We see this strongly in this episode of the Bad Batch that Crosshair does not like his human recruits. He he says that that's why clones are better because they don't hesitate to follow orders, or at least the clones that are that have the inhibitor chip that works. Um, but I really want to see Cody. I know that his connection with Obi-Wan wasn't as strong as Anakin and Rex. And keep in mind that much of the 501st were considered defective clones by the Kaminoans. And we very much see in the Bad Batch that defective clones, their inhibitor chips don't work. And we see this obviously. I don't know if it was much that Rex's just relationship with Ahsoka that caused him to hesitate, or the fact that he knew about the inhibitor chip beforehand that caused him to hesitate before executing the order. But not only that, we see Jesse, who didn't have much of a friendship or relationship with Ahsoka. We see him considering Rex's words when he says Ahsoka Tano is no longer a Jedi. The order was to kill all remaining Jedi. And so you see even Jesse hesitate for a second, considering, hey, she's not a Jedi. But then his inhibitor chip kicks in, and then he ends up trying to execute the order. And you saw the finale by now, so that's what happened. So most of the 501st was considered defective by the Kaminoans. And if I'm playing along with my theory here, that means that a lot of their inhibitor chips weren't fully functional. And so that's why Rex was able to hesitate. And that's why he didn't fully execute Order 66. As opposed to Cody, who was not a defective clone and commander of the Grand Army of the Republic. His inhibitor chip was fully functional, even though, yes, he was probably great friends with Obi-Wan Kenobi. He had no problem with saying, blast him, and knocking Kenobi to the water on Utapau. So I love episodes like this. I mean, there's not particularly a lot of action, but there's story development and character development, and that's what I love about Star Wars. And so there's just so much world building in episodes like these, and I love that in a TV show. We got so much of that in Clone Wars, and we got even more of that in Rebels. It's just that's why I think the Star Wars universe is so strong, because of shows like these. And yes, we love those action-packed episodes, but I can live with these world-building episodes because they're just as good. It's a lot to unpack in this episode, I know, and I apologize for not getting a breakdown or reaction for the first two episodes. I messed up my rendering for the reaction I had to the first episode. I apologize for that, so there's not going to be one. But yeah, I think that's all I have. There's a lot of episodes coming. We have, I believe, 16 confirmed. I don't know if there was more. I remember Kevin Kiner talking about a while back that he had just finished the soundtrack for episode 14. So at least I know it's confirmed 16 episodes, but who knows if there's more. I hope there's more. I know this show's definitely going to get renewed. I'm very confident because we saw just how we all rallied, us as Star Wars fans, we all rallied for the Clone Wars to be saved, and lo and behold, it got saved in the best way possible. So the Bad Batch is no different. Dave Filoni, you're awesome. Keep up the great work. I love everything you're doing. And we will see you next week. Hope everybody is staying well. Please stay safe. Please get vaccinated. Let's do our part in helping get this pandemic over with so that we can go out and enjoy Star Wars as friends. Again, I hope all is well, and remember that the Force will be with you always.